You're listening to a new episode of SunCast, the weekly series hosted by David Siegel that keeps you up to date on all the latest happenings with the Connecticut Sun.
Hi, everybody. It's David Siegel, and I'm pleased to welcome you to another Connecticut SunCast. And we are nearing the end of the stretch run. There's only 4 games left for the Sun, currently holding the number 2 position overall in the seeds, something that I know Coach Curt Miller is looking forward to trying to maintain, as he really needs to put in perspective for us himself what number 2 means. So it's a pleasure to welcome Coach Miller back to the SunCast. Curt, how are you?
Great, David. Always a pleasure to join you.
Thank you very much. And let's just tell people what it's like, how important, not even the fact because of the history of you guys and what's happened the last 2 years, but just in general, the psychological advantage and what it does for the team and all to have earned that second spot in the bye in the first round, if that's possible.
Yeah, certainly the double bye in the new format is so coveted with the first and second seeds, and being able to avoid a one-and-done game is a luxury. So everybody knows the value of staying in the 1 or 2 spots. We've seen the history of this new format that the seeds in the 3 or 4 holes haven't necessarily had great success in that second round one and done. So we're always leery of that, and for sure we've had that happen to us a couple times. New York has happened to have that, ironically, a couple times. And so and this year is no exception. I feel maybe more than ever in my 5 years in the league that someone sitting in that 5, 6, 7, 8 hole truly could get hot at the right time of the year, and if they're healthy, make a run to a championship. I really believe it's that open. So the double bye is huge. But I know all of us from top to bottom of the 8 teams that are going to make the playoffs, none of us fear, being in the 3 or 4 spot or in that 5 through 8 spot. That we're just going to, handle the matchups as they come and be prepared and give it our best shot. But certainly we know what's on the line to be able to advance immediately to the semifinals if you stay in the 1 or 2 slot.
And so people look at the schedule and they see that, of the 4 remaining games you have, only 1 team is in the playoffs, that being Chicago. But, New York, Dallas, and Indiana have all had their moments where they've been exceptional. Indiana, especially right now, playing extremely well. So you really can't take any of these teams lightly.
Absolutely, and everybody is playing for something different. I look at New York on paper, I watch them on film, and just see how dangerous they can be. Great respect for Tina Charles, great respect for Kia Nurse. Bria Hartley is playing her best basketball over the last 5 and has really been on fire. And they at times they can get really, really hot from the 3-point line with all their shooters. And when Tina is Tina, and you put all those shooters, so that you got that. You mentioned Indiana, the other road game that we have to end the season. They've looked fantastic the last couple games, and Tierra McCowan has looked like, maybe the most dominant rookie, and that's saying something with how good a year Collier and Enrique has had. But McCowan has been such a dominant force back-to-back games, and so they're dangerous. And then you got home games, and Dallas is so athletic and can hurt you in so many different positions, and then there's Chicago, and we have had times struggled to guard Vandersloot, who's kind of the master orchestrator there is in the league, and getting the ball to the people in the right time in the right place. So all 4 games are really important to us, and all 4 games will be difficult. So the best approach, 1 at a time.
To put you on the spot a little bit, right now you're sitting 2.5 games ahead of LA and Vegas by percentage points for the number 2 spot. I know you want to win them all, but how many do you think that you can win to keep that spot, or is that something that you don't even want to talk about?
Well, again, our approach is 1 at a time, David, but it's hard not to peek at it, and you realize with the amount of games left with everybody else is we control our own destiny. So if we go 4-0 or 3-1, and I guess we should start there. If we go 3-1 and end with 24 wins, no one can catch us from behind us right now. So at worst case scenario, 3-1 in these last 4, you're guaranteed a top 2 spot. So ultimately, that's asterisk. We can control that. We don't need any help anybody else. If we go 2-2, we have an opportunity to stay ahead of both Chicago and Vegas. They can't get to 23 wins. 2-2 would put us at 23. The problem is that Los Angeles can get to 23 wins if we go 2-2, and they hold our tiebreaker. So the scary part of only going 2-2 is if Los Angeles wins out in their last 3 games of the regular season are at home, and they have won 11 or 12 straight home games, so you don't expect them to lose at home. So that's a really scary proposition that if we only go 2-2 in these last 4, Los Angeles could catch us, and they hold the tiebreaker and could bump us down to the 3 hole. If that was to happen. So 3-1, we take care of our own business. And if you get to 2-2 or worse, 1-3 or an 0-4 finish, anything can happen. We can't be any lower than 5, and we're still playing for number 1, obviously.
Well, the one plus, at least for our listeners, I'm sure that Coach, but LA does play those games at home, but at least of their remaining games, they start with Indiana, who we already talked about, and then they play at Vegas, and they still have both Seattle and Minnesota as playoff teams. And I'm sure that your friend Nikki Collin would love to take them out and help you out too. So at least LA has a pretty difficult schedule coming up.
Well, it's a short turnaround for games. They also have the most games, equaling the most games left in the league of anyone. A lot of us have 4, or even Vegas only has 3. With LA's got 10. They got 5 games left, and not a long period of time. So they're going to be playing a lot of games. But again, we can't control what they're going to do. All we can do is control ourselves, and 3-1 would get us in those top 2 spots.
Well, talking about controlling what you can and doing what you have to do, let's talk for a second about those last couple of games. The game against Vegas was a playoff atmosphere at Mohegan Sun Arena, which was one of the most exciting games that I've seen in a long time. It's not surprising that the team kind of ran out of gas a little bit in L.A. after that ridiculous turnaround, but to come back and go into Seattle and just take it to them the way you guys did, you got to feel good about the last few games and the way that's gone. Never mind all the games that you had been winning before that was on that nice winning streak. Just those 3 focus on, please.
Yeah, I thought the Vegas game was as fun a game as we've been in a long time. The crowd, the atmosphere was fantastic. We knew what was on the line with that game and was the rubber match in the series. They had recently gotten Wilson back to form arguably, the most talented, front court is what everyone likes to talk to them about. And so to see the way Alyssa Thomas played in that game, to see, the subtle things that may not always show up on a stat sheet that Jonquel does against that talented front court was fantastic. And just loved our fight, loved our competitiveness. And then, obviously, the difficult travel to the West Coast we knew was not going to allow us any favors with Los Angeles. We traveled up to the Hartford airport after that game. We checked into the hotel after 1 a.m. We're at the ticket counters at 4:30, flew across country and had a short practice to prepare. And I thought did a lot of good things. Despite the game getting a little bit away from us in the third quarter, which has been so good to us this year, I really thought we competed. I thought we executed a lot of things that we were trying to accomplish. They were just better than us that night. They were, we outran them. We had more second chance points. We scored more points in the paint. But their execution in the half court was special that night. We just couldn't find ways to disrupt them enough. And we came up short, but to turn around and have the focus we did in Seattle, I felt a real professional preparation by our team in the short time that we flew up to Seattle. I think it helped walking into that locker room minutes before we took the court for the game and being able to share with them that 3 and 4 had already lost that night, and 5, Chicago, was on the ropes and ended up did lose that night, that we had a golden opportunity ahead of us that 3, 4, and 5 had all lost, and we could, gain a game if we found a way against Seattle. And we just came out with a workman's-like approach, a little bit shaky start, took an early timeout. We were down 6. The next thing you know, I think we went on an 8 or 10-0 run immediately, flipped the score, and really never looked back after that. We were just committed to getting the ball in the paint. We played with a lot of energy and passion, turned over another team, again, that has really, really talented offensive players. And so really proud. It was a big win, and we knew, 20 minutes before the start of that game when we left the locker room what had happened around the league. And I think that really helped the laser focus that night on what that game could have meant to us. And it came through, and we, picked up a very, very important road win.
Part of what we had talked about from the beginning of the season, the importance of Courtney Williams stepping up and having, a better year on both ends of the court. She has certainly been turning it on offensively the last couple games, but, with the team shorthanded in the backcourt, Courtney's been doing what it appears to me, at least, as more of a layperson, that she's been doing the job on both ends of the court lately. Is that your feelings too?
Yeah, again, her biggest growth has been at the defensive end, and she has stretches where, she just looks fantastic. And then there's challenges. That stretch alone, you go from guarding McBride, who's strong and powerful and at times has bullied Courtney around into screens. And then in Los Angeles, you have Raquana, who is really, really special, and she had a big night. She made 5 threes, and I believe if you look at an individual that, made a big difference, it was Raquana. So that challenge. Well, the reward after those 2 games in a short turnaround is to turn around and have to guard and chase Jewell Lloyd and her activity and the miles that you put in during a game guarding Jewell Lloyd. So there's no off nights at the 2-guard position in this league. And, Courtney has to guard some of the best players in the world at that position. And she's really getting better. And I still think there's even another step for her that way. But the offensive end is really picked up, and she's been special in spurts. And that Vegas game, she was just really, really dialed in and locked in. And when she gets in those modes, she's as fun a player to watch in the league as there is.
So, as you look at the next couple of games, your keys, just continued consistency, trying to stay healthy as part of it as well, JJ needing to step up a little bit more on the offensive end and stay out of foul trouble, AT continue on this path. What do you see as the primary key for your team to be successful in the final 4 games?
Yeah, it starts at the defensive end. From the midway point of the season, David, I feel like we found more ways every single night differently. It's never been the same blueprint, but differently of trying to disrupt teams and trying to get people out of rhythm. And when we've had some success getting people out of rhythm, we're finding ways to win. And so it all starts at the defensive end. New York can really get out and run. Again, they have talented guards. Hartley's in a groove right now, playing at the 2-guard position, and Kia Nurse is an all-star this year. So you have explosive 2 threes, and then they're going to play through Tina a lot, and she's going to get as many shots as any superstar does in this league. And they're going to play through her 15 to 25 times at the offensive end throughout the game, and everything's going to go through her. So, we have to be locked in and have a good defensive performance at the same time. We've got to continue to do the little things on offense. We've talked a lot about screening, talked a lot about not settling and staying aggressive. And, that last win against Seattle was the first time in a long time that you looked at the stat sheet and we didn't take a lot of bad threes. We didn't even force threes. We just were in constant attack mode and got the ball into the paint and was really successful. So I don't want to lose that blueprint. Three-point shooting is something I believe in, and our spacing and part of our game, but we've got to have a good balance, and we've got to get the ball into the paint. Sometimes when you get the ball in the paint, it opens up those three-point shots even more. So, it all comes down to the little things. And if we start thinking about 3 wins instead of the next 3 minutes within each game, then we're going to get ourselves in trouble. But tons of effort, tons of chemistry, staying together through the ups and downs of these last 4 games will be a big deal for us.
One last thing I wanted to ask you about, the armchair quarterbacks, for lack of a better way, on the internet had a lot of comments I saw about you playing your starters and your regulars up 20 fairly early in the game, in the last game against Seattle. How important is it for you to keep everybody flowing on the same page and not look at things now and saying, okay, I can get them a couple minutes of rest here or whatever the case may be? That, people always talk about UConn when they're winning big, how Gino should take out his starters, but he always talks about keeping them in a flow and keeping them consistently getting minutes together. Is it the same thing at your level and what you're trying to do right now with keeping everybody on the court?
Well, first and foremost, you got to secure wins, and that plays in first on how you're feeling the game is going, how your matchups are going, are players locked in and dialed in. We constantly have good dialogue with our players and ask, do they need a blow? Do they want a blow? There's a lot that goes into subbing at this level. It's not like high school and college where the coach controls everything. There's a lot of dialogue with your players. The other aspect is that people don't realize how beat up our bench is currently. Natisha Heidemann is just coming back from a turf toe injury. Has finally been cleared. She is less than 100%. And so while we're trying to get her back into the flow, we're trying to manage her minutes and not to re-aggravate an injury that is a tough one. It's a tough injury to rehab. It really requires rest. But if you don't get her a little bit of minutes, she's going to lose her groove. And if you don't get her a few minutes, then you never get to be able to get Jazz out of the game. And your other backup point guard is Alyssa Thomas. So it feels like you can never get her out of the game at all with how well she's defending. And she's also been the backup point guard while Heidemann's been hurt. So, and then people don't realize how much a calf strain, a lower back injury has really led to some lower leg issues with Plaisance since we acquired her. It's just been, I just feel so bad for her that she has not yet played a healthy game in a Connecticut Sun uniform. And so while we give her the first go every time, it's not always easy to watch her limping around and gimping around. And, Bree Jones played really, really well in the second half, and we're able to get her a lot of extended minutes through the third and entire fourth quarter. But we didn't have 5 healthy players off the bench. I couldn't go with Teresa in the second half, so I had to keep a starter in late. And so Courtney Williams finished the game on the court with a 20-point lead. We're just, with Rachel and Leja out, we just don't have a lot of healthy bodies. So our starters understand that they're going to log some extra minutes. But so a little bit is not by design. So the armchair quarterbacks can look at our roster and wonder why we're doing certain things, but they don't realize how beat up, banged up we are behind the scenes.
Well, Coach, we got 4 more, and then hopefully a playoff berth. Hopefully not playing the first 2 rounds of the playoffs. So let's make that clear. And it's been fun. It's been a little bit of a different year. It's been you've used the word grind yourself. That there's been some tough wins to grind out, not just blowouts, and that hopefully will help the team in the playoffs.
It's amazing some of the adversity that we've gone through this year, considering with 4 games left, we've equaled our win total the last 2 years and up to 63 regular season wins in the last 3 years and counting. And it's just remarkable because they stuck together through some adversity on and off the court and some injuries. And the last, week or so have really felt good. And sometimes you need to feel some adversity to realize when things start to feel better. And so even after the LA loss, there was this presence in the locker room that we recognized that we did some good things. We weren't good enough and we weren't satisfied, but we did some good things and we felt okay about each other. And there's this sense and there's this feeling right now with this team. We feel better than we have a lot of this year, where at times it felt like a grind. And I'm excited. I'm excited to see where that goes, and it can always change from game to game, but they certainly have really enjoyed, and there's a feeling right now about this team that's on a really positive vibe, so we hope to keep it going. Well,
one more win tonight, and you will become the second team to be 500 or better in the WNBA on the road this year. So that's something to look for, and good luck, Coach. Let's get to that 500 mark on the road and earn that second spot or first spot.
All right, David. I appreciate it, and one at a time, but we put ourselves in a good position right now.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.